Hi, my name is Ann Sermons Gillis, and I am a member of Unity of North Charleston. And I am interviewing other members of Unity so that when you sit down beside them in church, you'll know a little bit more about them. Or if you're considering joining Unity, then you can find out what we're all about. I'm really happy to welcome this morning Regina Williams. Welcome, Regina.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm very happy to hear about your life, get to know you a little bit better. Now, where are you from originally?
Originally, I'm from the universe of Brooklyn, and I say it like that because Brooklyn is a separate universe.
Wow, how is that so?
Well, originally, it was a city unto itself
Okay.
before it was incorporated into one of the five boroughs. And if you're a New Yorker, you know that people from different, not just different boroughs, but different areas of a given borough are very distinct, not just in the buildings they live in, but the way they think of themselves in terms of being New Yorkers.
Oh, wow. So it's a unique culture unto itself.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
did you were born there? You grew up there?
yes,
Did you live there
yes.
most of your life?
Yes, most of my life, but I've also lived on the West Coast for a brief while.
Okay.
Um, yeah,
California?
yeah.
You lived
Yeah,
in California?
my husband and I thought we were going to move there, and we did. And that was wonderful. But shortly after that, my mother was ill, and I came back to New York to see about her. And that, then we became bi-coastal, and eventually we just ended up back in New York.
Like a homing pigeon.
Yeah.
And then what brought you to Charleston, the Charleston area?
When I got ready to retire, it occurred to me that I could not afford to live the lifestyle I had been used to on a retirement income. And so I kept looking for other cities and places to move, and I couldn't come up with anything. Yeah. And finally, I just said, okay, Lord, look here. I need a plan. And I went into meditation. And the first thing that came was Charleston. And I jumped up off my mat and said, absolutely not. No, I'm not moving south. I had negative experiences in my youth in the South, and I was not eager to come. But everything after that, people I hadn't talked to in forever called me from Charleston.
Huh?
I went to Georgia. I got a phone call from a girlfriend I'd known for years. I said, "Where are you?" Charleston. And it went on like that. And so finally I said, okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. And so I came down and I stayed with a friend. I only knew two people here. I came down and started looking for houses, someplace to live. And I found it. I found it. But I couldn't move in because the house that I chose had just been sold. And so I was told that in 6 months I could, a house could be built. And that's what happened.
You built a
And
house.
that's how I ended up in Charleston.
We have a lot in common. Both of us are writers, and also I moved to Texas in the same way. I was
Interesting.
given guidance to it, and I moved to the Houston, Texas area. Very, very similar story. Okay, wonderful. Well, when you mentioned moving down, you said you moved down. Were you divorced, or did your husband or widowed?
Yeah, yeah, we were divorced by then, yes.
Okay, you were divorced by then, and so you moved here and by yourself. And yeah, I understand you have children. How many children? What ages?
Three, 58, 50, 58, 57, and 46.
Girls, boys?
Two boys and a girl.
Are they still in the New York area?
Nobody's here. They're all out of state.
Yeah. Are they in New York?
No, Ohio and Florida.
Okay. So y'all are scattered all around.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you were in New York, I guess that's where you had your career when you lived in New York.
Yes.
And what were you doing there?
Primarily, I was an administrator, and I spent 22 years working for the church, either the Presbyterian Church USA or church world service.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and 22 years between the two of them. Yeah.
And I think now you have another career. Tell us about
Yes, I do. As author, that actually began with the Presbyterian Church. I wrote curriculum for the Presbyterians and the Baptists. Um, I worked for the Presbyterians at the time, but I was asked if I would write curriculum, and I said, I don't know anything about writing curriculum. And they said, well, we have an editor who will work right with you. And so
that.
it was. And so I ended up writing 3 separate books, for the church, for use in Sunday schools and other various spiritual and religious settings.
Well, what is your book that you wrote? Tell us
It
about
is,
that.
it's called Promise, and it's a collection of short stories.
That's great. And is it available at church or at a bookstore?
Yes, it has been. It has been. I don't know if they still have copies, but it is. It was.
And where can people get it if they wanted a copy?
They can go online and look for Promise by Regina E. Williams.
Okay. You know where to get it if you want
Yes,
it. So
yes.
how did you start your spiritual search? I mean, you couldn't end up with unity if you didn't have some kind of spiritual search going on. How did that start?
Um, I guess I should say that my grandfather was a minister, but everybody was in a different denomination. So um, my grandmother was Pentecostal, my mother was Salvationist, my aunts we were all over the map. I joined the Presbyterian Church when I was maybe 13 or so. And that was primarily because they had a very active youth program. And I just absolutely loved that. So that was the beginning. And then as time went on, I began to question a lot of different things that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I mean, there were many, many experiences that shaped my spiritual journey, including Camp Minnesink. There was a director named Gladys V. Thorne. We called her Thorny. But their whole thing, they introduced us to not just spirituality, but to African American literature. And I mean, just it was a whole different experience, exposed me to things I hadn't been exposed to before. And it really began to help me on that journey of what the questions really were.
So that African American literature probably helped take you
Oh,
back
yeah.
to your roots and
Yeah,
maybe explain things um,
that was helpful. Yes.
that
Mhm.
were nebulous. Well, then how did you get from that searching place to unity? How did you find unity?
Catherine Lampkin, who's a member of Unity. I had known Catherine, and who became her husband was Kurt Lampkin. And we were all in a writing workshop in New York together, a poetry writing workshop in New York. And I knew she was somewhere in this area when I moved here, but I couldn't find either of them. I couldn't find them. And apparently, long story short, some kind of way we found each other. And she kept inviting me to Unity, and I kept saying, I don't want to go to any church. I want to be left alone. I just leave me be. And I just at that point, I didn't want to be proselytized. And so she said, just come and visit. And I finally decided to go. And I've been there ever since. I just found a home. I found a place that allowed one to think on their own. They provided information, they provided guidance, but they didn't say this is what you have to believe. And that was key.
I think that a lot of individual spiritual thinkers have that same attitude, and that is, I don't want to go anywhere because, I already know what it looks like. I don't want to go there.
Right.
And then you were surprised. Well,
Mhm.
what in just a few sentences, could you tell me what your philosophy in life is?
I think our journey is a journey of one of going inward, of finding self. Um, so however you label that, I think it's a journey from self to self. really a journey of going inward and finding out who you are. And in that finding, you discover that there is divinity, that, you're not separate from that which is divine. And so I'm not sure how to explain that, but the sense that you are not separate from creation, from all that is, it's all one. And that's part of the journey. That's why, in my mind, that's why we're here, to explore what that means.
Now, did you have this realization when you were in the Presbyterian church, before you moved here? Is this something that you got later in life?
It's a journey. It's not one thing. I think each place I've been, I've spent time in India and being exposed to Hinduism, being exposed to various other religions, has really, I discovered the oneness of creation in all that. There's, no matter what tradition I have been exposed to, I always find something that's unifying, something that is very similar to what another tradition practices. So for me, I mean, of course, people can argue and fuss and fight about what a text means, what sacred texts are different. That's not mine. They can go on and on with that. But when you really look into the core of whatever that is, it's about learning to live in love, learning to know who you are.
Yes, the golden thread in all religions.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love what you said, that it's a process. You don't, you can't tell where anything started or stopped, because it was this ongoing realization, just getting closer and closer to the source. Thank you.
Yes.
So moving a little different direction to a little different direction, and that is, do you have any favorite books or authors?
Oh, my word. That is another whole journey. I think every time I think of a favorite book or a favorite author, it changes. So today when I woke up, I realized that Octavia Butler was at the top of the list. And Octavia Butler writes what's labeled as dystopian fiction. But she's absolutely one of my favorites, as well as James Baldwin, as well as Ann Petrie, Alice Walker.
Do you have any particular favorite books that?
Oh yeah. There's The Bone Setter's Daughter, The Thing Around Your Neck, The Samurai's Garden. What else? Let me see. Meridian. That's by Alice Walker. I'm all over the map. I mean, there are so many wonderful writers and so much that they have to offer and insights, and it's interesting. I tend to, in my later years, I tend to seek out writers who are from elsewhere other than the United States. A lot of these are Asian writers, African writers, and I'm not sure why that is, but somehow I stumble upon these books, and I'm impressed with the universality of what they have to say.
Well, they give you a different perspective. Certainly, they're mind changing. Well, do you have any passions or hobbies that are distinct?
Well, writing, reading, people watching. That's my favorite, people watching.
Where do you people watch?
Well, I've traveled a lot, and I can remember my cousin and I drove across Europe, and she had her daughter at that time was 2.5 years old, and I would give her a break, and I would say, I'll take the baby, you go your way and I'll go mine, because we were so different. I mean, what she wanted to see was she wanted to see buildings and structures and the history of the buildings, and I wanted to meet the people. And so I would go somewhere and maybe sit on a bench. I remember sitting across from Chartres, the cathedral, and people just came up and walked up and found out I was by myself, and they'd take me home. Kids would take me home. Little old ladies would take me home. Men would take me home to their wives. It was amazing. Just, they couldn't get the idea that you would travel alone, and so they didn't want you to be alone, and so they would take you home and they would feed you, and things like that. So, or I would sit in a cafe and just have coffee or whatever and watch the crowds, watch people sitting in the restaurant.
Well, we are very much alike. I've traveled a lot alone myself, and people would say,
Mhm.
"You travel alone," and I said, "You're never alone,"
Right.
because there's always people there wherever you are.
That's right.
It's a different experience. But you went with your cousin, did you say? And
On that, yeah, we drove across Europe on that one, but
with a
I've
two and
traveled.
a half year old. That was
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, yeah. She's now a grandmother.
Oh my, that is wild. Well,
Yeah.
do you have any specific spiritual practices?
Perhaps meditation is the one that stands out. I think that's the one that I rely on most of the time when I need answers, when I'm uncertain, when I just need to calm down, when I need to understand something I don't understand, when I'm presented with situations that seem bizarre. For whatever reason, I have found that meditation is what keeps me grounded. It's what provides what I need spiritually and emotionally. Um, and it's also provided a community. And that's important, especially when you move someplace and you don't know anybody.
Or how,
You know,
what do you mean?
2.5 people.
What do you mean it provided a community?
It provides a community because you seek out when you meditate and you are a meditator, you seek out other people who meditate.
Okay.
And so Unity provides a group meditation Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And I participated in that. And I've not been able to participate lately, but I try to do it at least once a week with the group. So it provides community. It led me to Unity. Because meditators are there. They're all there.
Absolutely, absolutely. We do value
Mhm.
meditation at Unity. Well, do you have any last words, any advice or a thought that you'd like to leave us with?
That we're each on our own journey, but we're never alone, as you have pointed out. And I think that Unity has provided me with not just a spiritual practice, but a community and a feeling that I indeed belong.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Regina.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.